这是一个非常有趣的时刻。就在美洲贸易代表与日内瓦刚刚达成一点微妙共识的当口，两国领导人就迫不及待在世界舞台上华丽登场。比排场、拼阵容，北京隆重推出的中拉论坛正面交锋川普在沙烏地阿拉伯的中东行，两场外交秀成为5月国际政治的双重震央，让内行人看门道，外行人看热闹，总是牵动着全球地缘政治的敏感神经。习近平亲自坐镇，北京高规格接待15国拉丁美洲外长，释放出明确讯号：中国要稳住全球南方的朋友圈，南南合作、基建援助、疫后复苏，这些耳熟能详的外交术语背后是一笔大账，一年超过1600亿美元的中拉贸易总额，以及累计超过300项大型投资案，现在正准备要再加码。
At a gathering of Latin American and Caribbean officials in Beijing, Chinese President Xi Jinping calls on them to unite with China in defending global peace and multilateralism.
面对地缘政治和阵营对抗、暗流涌动、单边主义、保护主义逆流增长，中方愿同拉方携手启动5大工程，共谋发展振兴，共建中拉命运共同体。
Trade between China and the region exceeded $500 billion for the first time last year. Xi has vowed to further deepen economic ties, announcing a $9.2 billion credit line to support development and a visa-free arrangement for 5 Latin American countries. It was his first public statement since China and the US slashed reciprocal tariffs and agreed to a 90-day pause.
China is currently Brazil's largest trading partner and is possibly the largest receiver of products produced by our country, especially in agriculture.
I'm very optimistic and excited based on what I've heard. It shows the collaboration, cooperation of all the member countries that we intend to strengthen our bilateral arrangements with China. And I think that with all the trade wars and the tariff wars that we're seeing, this is extremely important for all the countries of the meeting here today.
而地球另一端，刚刚重返白宫的川普选择打破预期，他第2任期首次出访，没有去和普丁喝茶，而是直奔中东，首站锁定沙烏地阿拉伯。随行商业代表团超过100人，这不是一次普通出访，而是一场安全与能源的双重出击。
The 5-day tour, Trump's first state visit overseas since returning to office, included stops in Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and surprisingly, he met with Syria's interim president. The first time an American president has done that in a generation. Just as telling is where he went, though. Normally, a U.S. president's first trip abroad is always to its closest neighbors and trading partners, Canada and Mexico. Biden broke ranks by choosing the United Kingdom, but both of Trump's first trips have been to the Middle East.
The president spent a lot of time talking about Iran and talking about Syria, and we actually heard a pretty major policy shift there. Walk us through the details.
Yeah, I think that's right. Specifically, the main headline coming from here in Riyadh is on the topic of Syria. The president announcing as he met with global business leaders from the U.S. and from Saudi Arabia that he would be ending sanctions on Syria, which is significant after the awful civil war there. Syria now with a new young government, the president hoping that that government will help pursue peace in that area. By ending sanctions, the president also allows for new investment and aid into the country. It was met by wild approval from the crowd here in Saudi Arabia, the president having spoken to the Turkish president and the Saudi crown prince about this issue before arriving here. So that's one of the major headlines. But again, to be clear, the real focus, Morgan, on this visit and the tour across the Middle East at large is going to be on the issue of money. $600 billion in investments announced today between those two countries, $140+ billion specifically on military equipment being purchased by the Saudis from the U.S., Morgan.
This has been an amazing trip. We've raised trillions of dollars of investment for our country. And we're dealing with really good people that have been abandoned in a way by our country and by the United States.
For the president, diplomacy took a back seat to drumming up business.
不少评论直言， 这是一次公开的反中外交。当中东开始拥抱华为，谈人民币结算，川普选择亲自来把局稳住。于是我们看到，一边是中国全力经营拉美，一边是美国紧抓中东，两位强人仿佛画出两道资本与影响力的板块边界，全球政治经济的力量版图正在悄悄重塑。
Before our eyes, a new generation of leaders is transcending the ancient conflicts of tired divisions of the past and forging a future where the Middle East is defined by commerce, not chaos, where it exports technology, not terrorism, and where people of different nations, religions, and creeds are building cities together, not bombing each other out of existence. In the end, the so-called nation builders wrecked far more nations than they built, and the interventionists were intervening in complex societies that they did not even understand themselves. They told you how to do it, but they had no idea how to do it themselves.
Josh, this is a dramatically different approach from what we've seen in the past. This is a rejection of the neocon, warhawk, interventionists. How did you see that trip?
Well, that speech specifically was a fantastic speech. I watched the whole thing, actually. He gave that speech in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. He spoke at this U.S.-Saudi conference. So he's done yeoman's work to already pull back Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates from falling prey into the Chinese sphere of influence there. China had done a lot of outreach via its Belt and Road Initiative into the Arabian Peninsula during the Biden administration, because the Biden administration was mollycoddling the Iranian regime, and the Arabs basically then all went to China. So Donald Trump, I think, deserves 3 cheers for what he did with the Saudis and the Emiratis.
Now Donald Trump has done that tour of the Middle East, especially the Persian Gulf, and done a very transactional type of foreign policy, enlisting all of the Persian Gulf into sort of an economic orbit with the United States, maybe weaning them for China. How big of a tectonic change might that be?
I think it is an incremental shift. Let's keep in mind that when Trump was president first time around, his first trip was also to the Gulf. He went to Saudi Arabia. You remember all of those leaders collected and they grabbed the orb together. They were talking about counterterrorism, counterinsurgency. Not as many deals got done, though. This time around, you're right. The commercial numbers were a lot bigger. Trump had a lot more CEOs, some of the world's biggest CEOs, in tow with him on that trip. Also, notably, this time around, he didn't go to Israel. And there's a lot more tension between him and Prime Minister Netanyahu, especially on the back of some of the diplomacy that Trump is trying to get done. But I mean, the fact remains, as in 2017, Trump's best relations with the leaders that he has on speed dial are with the leaders who have consolidated a lot of power in the Gulf states, particularly MBS in Saudi Arabia, MBZ in the UAE. And I think those relations are only getting stronger, only getting deeper. And yes, more, if you will, strategically transactional with Trump himself, with the United States, and with the business community.
And how does that play off against China? Some of the Gulf states had been getting closer to China. Is this sort of part of a rebalancing the way Kissinger and Nixon may have done of China and Russia?
Well, of course, these are oil producers, and the United States isn't taking any oil from the Middle East of note. That is overwhelmingly going to China and will continue to go to China. So those commercial interests aren't going away. And the Chinese are going to continue to do a lot of investment on the ground in those countries. But when we start talking about national security, and here, not just in terms of the presence of U.S. military bases and the sales of materiel, but also critically when we look at advanced technologies and artificial intelligence, there we are seeing a real decision by the Emiratis, first and foremost. They want to work AI with the United States and its corporations, and they're going to take the Chinese out of their system. And there's a lot of pressure and a lot of effort to do the same with the Saudis and other major Gulf states. And I think that is a shift as we think about the future of the Gulf, yes.